Hey guys, it's Haley and welcome to another bookish video. Today I'm going to be getting into my March wrap up. I'm going to tell you all about the 12 books that I read during the month of March, give you full reviews and full tea. But before we get into the video, I do want to thank the sponsor of today's wrap up, which is ExpressVPN. If you've never heard about ExpressVPN before, here's a little bit about what they do. Basically, anytime that you are accessing the internet, it's like you are sending a postcard out there with your message, aka all your information, out in the open for everyone to see. Nosy people at the mailbox, at the post office, the mailman, everybody. Whenever you're connected to an unencrypted network, you are sending countless pieces of information that you want to keep private to yourself out there. Even before that information gets to its intended destination, it can be intercepted. But with a VPN or a virtual private network, it essentially creates a tunnel that protects your information as it's on its way to its destination. It's basically like putting your postcard in an envelope rather than having it just out in the open for anyone to see. This is really important for hackers who try to steal your information. ExpressVPN will guard against that. And as a content creator, I do a lot of work out of coffee shops and libraries and airports and all those places that have free public Wi-Fi. So it's really important for me to have that secure connection. ExpressVPN even will protect you from advertisers and unwanted spam by masking your device's unique IP address. And that basically makes it a lot harder for big advertising companies to trace your data back to you and collect it for their insights. Another super cool thing about ExpressVPN is that you can pick where in the world you want your VPN to be located so you can access exclusive content from all over the globe, like Canadian Netflix or British Netflix. I know they have a ton of different shows on there versus what we have in the US. So if you want to try out ExpressVPN, go ahead and click my link down below. And when you use my link, you can get your first 3 months for free. Thank you so much to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video. Now let's go ahead and get into the book reviews. As always, we're going to start with my stats. So in the month of March, I read, as I said, 12 books for a total of 3,001 pages. Here is my mood breakdown. I actually read all thriller and horror this month, so everything was dark, tense, and mysterious for the most part. 9 of the books that I read were fast-paced and 3 were medium-paced. No slow-paced books in March. I was all about the thrilling thrillers. 7 of the books that I read were actually under 300 pages, and the other 5 were between 300 and 500 pages. I read all fiction books in March, and here is my genre breakdown according to Storygraph versus my genre tags based on my own shelves. And out of all 12 reviews that I gave in the month of March, I had 1 1-star, 1 2-star, 2 3-stars, 4 4-stars, 1 4.5-star, and 3 5-star books, for an average rating of 3.71 stars. And this is the breakdown of how I read those pages throughout the month of March. There were quite a few stretches that I read absolutely nothing in March between my bachelorette party, starting my new school program, and having one weekend where I literally was just sick in bed the entire time. I did not get a ton of reading done like I usually do, but I still read some great books and some flops, and I cannot wait to tell you all the tea. As always, we're gonna start out with my lowest rated book and work our way up to my highest rated favorite book of the month. So starting out with my 1 1-star book, we have The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. Now y'all, this is one that y'all were telling me about for months and months and months and months and months.
Haley, you have to read it. It's so good.
And now I'm questioning if y'all know my taste at all. because if you know anything about my favorite books, you know that my favorite all-time domestic thriller is The Last Mrs. Parrish by Liv Constantine, and The Housemaid by Frida McFadden is only a cheap knockoff of this book. There were scenes that were directly ripped from the pages of The Last Mrs. Parrish, and this is not the first time that Frida McFadden has been accused of
allegedly
plagiarizing her books based on a previously published book that maybe didn't get all the attention it deserved. In this book, we are following a down on her luck housemaid. She just got out of prison. She can't do any other job where they're gonna have a background check. So she decides to just try to make it as a little housemaid for this rich family. And as she's working there, she starts to notice some things that set off alarm bells in her mind, especially around the relationship between the wife and the husband. She starts thinking that the wife is a lunatic and she just needs to steal this woman's life and be the rich housewife herself. Things go crazy from there, but they go crazy in the exact way that I already saw in The Last Mrs. Parrish, that Liv Constantine did first, and Liv Constantine did better. So I really do not have time for books that completely rip off the entire plot from something that's come before them. And the responses and statements that Frida McFadden has put out really put a bad taste in my mouth. We had like an hour-and-a-half discussion about this book in my book club over on Patreon. So if you want full thoughts, full tea, diving into the Reddit thread and the sequel and all of that, you can watch that. I will link that Patreon post down below. But I'm honestly just so done talking about it. I don't want to give her any more clout. And if any of her stans try to come for me in the comments,
bye, I don't care.
The 2-star book that I read in the month of March was Mothered. I read this new release thriller for my Zoe stage taste test, and unfortunately this one just ended up not working out for me. It's branded as a thriller, but it wasn't all that thrilling, to be quite honest. We're following a mother and her adult daughter as they move in together right at the beginning of the pandemic. So they are forced to quarantine together and they have this strained relationship, and we're watching our main character basically like feel like she's going crazy. She's a completely unreliable narrator. We never have any clue what's actually happening or what's in her head. The entire book, we don't know if the mother is this insane, like crazy evil woman, or if it's just the interpretation of our main character. But I feel like that kind of second guessing was a little too muddy, and I feel like it was pretty clear, at least to the reader, that the mom was just this like old lady kind of sympathetic main character, and it was really weird to follow the perspective of someone who was like constantly shitting on this elderly woman. I just felt like our main character had not an ounce of empathy in her soul for her mom, and it was really weird to read from. The main character was also really annoying, and the book was just pretty boring. I feel like nothing really happened, and to call it a thriller, I'm gonna need a little bit more thrills. There were some interesting and dark family secrets uncovered, but again, they all just had this like weird air of like not having any empathy for anyone involved. I feel like the way Zoe Stage wrote this book was like we were supposed to be completely aligned with our main character and just believing everything that she was telling us, even if it had no empathy for her mom, her dad, and her disabled little sister. But unfortunately for that to work, we had to be properly ingratiated to our main character, and she just was not strong enough of a sympathetic main character for me to feel that and get on board, so it really fell flat for me. Next up, we are getting into my 3-star books, even more thrillers, y'all. The thrillers were really not hitting for me this month. First up, we have The Ex by Frida McFadden, which was fine. This one seemed like an original work to me, so at least she's got that going for her. She is in fact capable of writing original content. It was just kind of lackluster and not as great of a plot as the one that she allegedly, in my opinion, stole.
All of these opinions are alleged. I am just a girl. Please do not sue me, Frida.
Anyway, the X is following this main character, and he is this doctor, this hot doctor, and he previously was dating this woman for a super long time and abruptly ended it. So we are following the perspective of his ex and then also his new girlfriend. And the ex is constantly stalking him and his new girlfriend, trying to sabotage their relationship. And we're seeing both sides of it, right? We're seeing the ex who's doing all this crazy shit, allegedly, and then we're seeing the new girlfriend who is dealing with all this, and the fear is ramping up as she tries to figure out who is behind it. It took a while to get into the twists of it all. I feel like this book definitely could have been shorter, but when the twists came, they were interesting, they were surprising. It was just kind of a similar twist. I've seen it done a bunch of times. This one didn't give me any plagiarism vibes. It just gave like very basic domestic thriller. It was a fun little popcorn thriller, but I'm definitely gonna forget the entire plot by the time I do my yearly wrap up. And kind of a similar deal for The Housemaid's Secret. This was the sequel to The Housemaid. And again, this one actually seemed like an original plot, but it really just fell flat. It was a pretty formulaic popcorn thriller, entertaining for the moment, but at the end of the day, really forgettable. And if you watched my Frida McFadden taste test vlog, I just went on an absolute rant on this main character. Like, Frida is really trying to make us think that this housemaid character is this perfect, fun character that we want to like get on board with and like root for and follow in this series as she's this little detective Nancy Drew Queen. Like, she is not that great of a character. I don't know. She was really annoying to me. And her only defining characteristic really that Frida gave her, there was just no character development at all, other than she's poor. And to me, that is just not enough to define a main character that I'm supposed to get on board with for an entire series. Like, okay, she's poor. Not all poor people are the same. And poor people don't fit in this box. Like, just because someone is not wealthy and didn't grow up, you know, wearing Armani suits and drinking Don Julio does not mean that they don't know what those things are. It was just really weird, almost like fetishy characterization of a poor person. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it. It felt like Frida McFadden, who is this rich, successful doctor, was trying to play down to her audience of like blue collar workers who would pick up these books. I don't like it. Put a bad taste in my mouth. It was fine. The plot was fine, but it's not a favorite. Now diving into my 4-star books, we can finally get into some stuff that I'm excited to tell y'all about. Starting with Mukbang Princess by Rain Havoc. Y'all, this one is crazy. It is a, I think, 13-page short horror story, and it is extreme horror, okay? We are following these two quirky teens, or like young people, who are just on the internet trying to make a quick buck, and they're like, you know what? I bet we could start posting videos behind a paywall and make money from people who are just interested to see like what the video's about. And this really interested me because I'm like, listen,
I'm on my Patreon bag as well. I get it. It's fun.
but this isn't an innocent book video behind a paywall. The Mukbang Princess that they're interested in watching does some crazy shit. She's not sitting like Trisha Paytas just eating her McDonald's and talking to the camera. She goes beyond. And this book, novella, story thing absolutely shocked me. My skin was crawling. The descriptions of the gore were absolutely insane. If you just want a quick and dirty horror story to get you out of a slump and you like extreme horror, this one will do it. This one will shock you. That's for sure. I could not give it 5 stars because it just wasn't that much content. It didn't affect me that deeply, although I will never get that imagery out of my mind. Do I really want to give 5 stars to a 13-page story? No, it's not going to be a favorite of all time, but it was so much fun, so shocking, so disgusting, so gory. encapsulates everything I love about extreme horror. It also didn't take itself too seriously. It was very funny and very like wink, wink, nudge, nudge to internet culture. I loved it so much. Highly recommend if you like extreme horror, just go in, proceeding with caution, as we always do when I talk about extreme horror on this channel. Next up, we actually have a Frida McFadden book that I enjoyed, and that is Never Lie. This one is following a couple, and they are going to see this house that they're interested in buying. And when they get there, they think the realtor's there. They like see a light on in the house. Things have been like set up, moved around. There's food in the house, but the realtor's not there. And they're like, well, someone must be here. We don't know who it is. And then a snowstorm hits. And now they're stuck in this house with someone who is not their realtor. And creepy things start happening. And in alternating chapters, we're following the therapist who used to live in this grand house, who has mysteriously gone missing. And the female protagonist, who is now in this house, trapped, snowed in, finds the therapist's records, starts going through them.
HIPAA is shook.
And putting together the pieces of what happened to this therapist. In this book, the twists were twisting. It was short enough where I wasn't bored at all. I really, really enjoyed it. It's not going to be a super memorable thriller, but it was a fun time. It was original. The twist came back to back to back to back. Honestly, I would read another Frida McFadden book like this. I just hate that there's such a risk going into her books that it can be a complete ripoff of something that I've already enjoyed that was done better previously. So if y'all have any more Frida McFadden recs that are like this, leave them down below. I will try them, but do not tell me about The Wife Upstairs. Do not tell me about Do You Remember, because both of those are ripoffs of other things. Frida, you need to just stick to this queen because this is good. I know you're capable of original content, so just do more of this. It was good. Not a favorite, but if you're gonna read one from her, make it this one. Next up, y'all know I got into some Fear Street this month. I've been collecting first edition, first printings of all these classic nostalgic Fear Street reads from my childhood. So this month I read The Wrong Number by R.L. Stine. It's one of the Fear Street books, obviously, and I gave this one 4 stars. We are following 2 teens who start prank calling innocently, just like talking to boys. It's so 90s nostalgic, cute. And then all of a sudden they accidentally call a house and overhear a murder taking place. And they have to figure out who died, who killed them, where these people are at, and now they're mixed up in this whole murder plot and they may be the next victims. It was honestly so much more than just like a little fluffy kids book. Like this actually felt like a thriller, like an adult thriller. Like it was pretty intense. It was twisty. There was a lot of tension. There was great character development. I love, love, love the characters that we're following in this one. So if you're wanting to pick up a Fear Street book, highly, highly recommend The Wrong Number. And the last 4-star book that I have to talk to you about is Any Man by Amber Tamlin. Oh my gosh, this book was so good. We are following the actions in kind of like a puzzle piece amalgamation kind of way of this person named Maud, who is a serial rapist, but she's a woman. So it's very weird to have that, you know, turned on its head. It's not something that we hear about a lot. There are not many, like less than 1% of serial rapists are female identifying. So kind of an interesting thing to shed light on, but it does it in a way where it has commentary on rape culture, and if the statistics were flipped, how we might see it differently. It's written in a very intriguing way. I'll see if I can find a good example. Like there's just a lot of interesting kind of writing of it. There are interviews, there are poems, there are different things. It's not just written as a narrative style, and we're following a lot of her victims and getting all of their different perspectives. I really, really enjoyed it, although it was pretty heavy. I thought it was wonderfully written. The reason why I did not give it 5 stars, I knocked it down to 4, is because I think a few of these concepts and some of the writing just like went over my head. It was a lot to take in. It's pretty triggering material, as you can imagine. So while it's worth the read, I don't feel like I got the full understanding of it. I wish some of it would have been a little bit more spoon-fed to me, at least like at the end for general takeaways, because a lot of it I was just like kind of watching it happen with a scared expression on my face and not really taking in the commentary, because a lot of it was just very existential. It wasn't very direct as far as interpretation goes. So really great, really well written. If you're smarter than me, you may give this a 5-star, but for me, I just really enjoyed it and I give it a 4. I did have one 4.5 out of 5-star book this month, and that is Baby Teeth by Zoya Stage. This is the other one that I read for that taste test vlog, and I absolutely loved it. Y'all know I love creepy kid thrillers. One thing about me, if there's a demonic little child, I'm gonna eat it up. And that is exactly what we're following in Baby Teeth. We have this sweet couple and their daughter, Hannah. And the mom is getting increasingly frustrated with Hannah's behavioral issues. It all comes to a head when Hannah claims to her mother that she is the reincarnation of the first woman to be burned alive at the French witch trials. She's basically pretending to be a witch from the 1800s in France to scare her mom. And to her dad and the rest of the world, she is this mute child. She doesn't speak at all. So people are gaslighting the shit out of the mom. They don't even believe that this little child is speaking aloud because she only does it to her mom, and she only says batshit crazy things that nobody else would believe. Meanwhile, the mom is dealing with her own chronic health issues, and it has really great Crohn's representation, really great rep for just like chronic illness and chronic pain in general. We are so firmly on this mother's side. And even then, I found myself questioning throughout the book, wait, is this child really like a demon and a horrible kid? Or is she just really traumatized and this mom is just like dealing with so much that she's had it up to here? I went back and forth probably like 4 or 5 times. This book constantly kept me on my toes. It was so suspenseful, so twisty. The only reason why I knocked off that 0.5 star and I could not give it 5 is because while the first like 90% was so gripping, so fast paced, I was reading it like crazy, the last 10% just like did not come to a head the way that I wanted it to. It was kind of like a creeping, haunting family drama sort of ending, and I wanted it to end on a bang like the twists we're hitting in the rest of the book. I definitely don't think it was a bad ending. It just didn't match the pacing that I was used to for the majority of the book leading up to that point. So I took off half a star. It's not a perfect book, but I highly recommend it, especially if you are a reader like me who loves creepy children in your thrillers. And finally, I get to talk about my top 3 books of the month, my 5-star rated books. Starting out with The Wrong Number 2 by R.L. Stine. This is the follow-up to the Fear Street book that I talked about in my 4-star category. And we just get to spend more time with these characters. The person who they caught as the murderer in the first book gets released from prison on a technicality, and he is back trying to hunt them down. And because I already knew these characters and they were just further developed and the plot was even more twisty and high stakes and suspenseful than before, I gave it a 5-star rating. This is only the second Fear Street book that I gave 5 stars, and I truly believe that this stands up to modern, traditionally published, like contemporary adult thrillers. It was so fun, and it just has that little piece of nostalgia in there as well. They're super fast paced. I just love it. If you're going to pick up any Fear Street books, I would recommend the Wrong Number series and also the Silent Night series as well. Those are the best of the ones that I've read so far. I have 30 more on my shelves to read, so I can't wait to do an entire Fear Street wrap up, maybe a tier ranking video. I'm just getting so into these nostalgic reads. Can't wait to tell you more about them, but for now, this is my top of the top, up there with Silent Night. Then I have my second favorite book of the month, which is actually a contemporary. I can't remember the last time I read just a straightforward contemporary, but I am so glad that I picked this one up on my friend Matt's recommendation. We have Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead by Emily Austen. We are following a queer woman with debilitating anxiety.
If we just stop there, we're following me.
But her anxiety is so severe that it's difficult for her to hold down a job. So she ends up stumbling her way into this job at a Catholic church, which isn't a great fit for someone who is queer and atheist. But it's the only job that she can get, so she fakes it till she makes it and ends up working at this church, contemplating life, death, religion, mental health, and everything in between. It's kind of a plotless book, so if you like a plot-driven book, maybe this is not for you. But as we know on this channel, I am a very strongly character-driven reader. So following this character that I felt so close and so similar to and so seen by, I loved contemplating just the intricacies of life with her. The mental health rep in here is amazing. It is pretty anxiety inducing. I felt a lot of anxiety as I was reading it, so be aware of that if you dive in. This will sound like your anxious inner monologue. The writing style is really effective, but it can definitely be triggering in that way. If you want to feel seen though in your anxiety, I mean, nothing can match this for anxiety rep. It is phenomenal. And the conversations that are brought up in here are just something that I think a lot of people can relate to. While this is an extreme case, it's still pretty accurate to real life. It's funny, it's witty, it's relatable, it's poignant. I love it. I think this really might end up in my favorites of the year. Most of this reading month was pretty average, but this is just such a standout. This one and the next one are definitely contenders for my favorites of the entirety of 2023. So that makes up for all of the 3, 2, and 1 stars that I had this month. And drum roll please for my top book of March, my favorite book that I read, possibly this year so far. Out of everything that I've read, my favorite is Full Brutal by Christopher Triana. I absolutely loved this book. I love everything about it. I want to be buried with this book. You can pry it out of my cold, dead hands. I'm obsessed. This is an extreme horror book, and we are following this 16-year-old it girl cheerleader. She's rich, she's blonde, she's skinny, she's a bitch, and she has everything that you could ever want.
And she's a murderer.
That's right. That's right. She gets off on hurting people physically, emotionally, manipulating them, tearing their lives apart. It is just the most cathartic experience of female rage to read this book. It was so intense, so gory, so twisty. Every time that I thought it was gonna stop, it got taken up a step further and a step further, and she got crazier and crazier and crazier and went completely off the rails into this massacre. If you like something like the Mindfuck series, Girl in 6E, anything where you're following a female serial killer POV, but you want to make it extreme horror, God, this is the book for you. This is just so perfect. It is so campy. It's so funny. And I do not know how Christopher Triana, a man, is consistently writing really well fleshed out, well developed female characters with a voice that is fully believable to be a young girl. It is so weird to think that an older man wrote from this perspective, but it is so well done. I just want to applaud him for that, because that is really hard to do, to write from a perspective that is so different from you, and he does it so well. It's campy, it's nostalgic, it's set in the early 2000s, it's gory, it's fun, it's feminist, it's everything. Like, no notes. no notes. I could literally sit here and rave about this book forever and ever. It's crazy and it's everything I've ever wanted. So Christopher Triana ended up on my favorites of 2022 with Gone to See the River Man, and yet again, I believe he will end up on my favorites of 2023 unless another 20 books top this one, which I don't think that will happen this year. He's done it again. Another favorite of all time. All my extreme horror girlies, you have got to pick this one up. You will not be disappointed. And with that, those are all of the 12 books that I read in the month of March. I hope you got some good recommendations from this video. If you did, go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to go down below and sign up for ExpressVPN. Get those 3 months free with my link. And don't forget to go to therapy and read a book this week. I will see you guys in my next video.